Hello, and welcome to our webinar about being the fundraiser that you always wanted to be. My name is Jen Willett, and I am a donor engagement strategist here at MarketSmart. And if you do partner with us and sign on, there's the opportunity that you and I may be able to work together, and I would be very happy to serve you in your pursuit of becoming the fundraiser that you always wanted to be. We're going to talk about a couple of things today. First, we'll start with some of the problems that MarketSmart addresses. I'll go over some of the challenges that fundraisers are facing. We'll talk about our process and how it works. And I'll go over the supporter's journey, but very importantly, I'll go over your journey as a fundraiser when you partner with MarketSmart. MarketSmart is a mid-level, major, and legacy gifts software and marketing company, and we aim to help fundraisers with donor lead generation, qualification, prioritization, and cultivation. In the past, you may have used services to identify donors to solicit, but MarketSmart focuses on the qualification and cultivation of major and legacy gift prospects. And also, we look to help mid-level donors move up to become major donors. We'll help you further qualify donors by asking them about their legacy and major giving intent, their affinity for your organization, and most importantly, their passions and interests as they relate to your nonprofit's mission. Donors who show interest in giving will receive automated cultivation that nurtures relationships, essentially moving them in their consideration process without any effort on your part. This allows you, as the fundraiser, to focus your time on prospects who are ready to talk to you now, ready to talk to you about how they can feel good by giving to a cause that they care about. And others who are not far along in their consideration are being provided with value. They're given information and stories that interest them and help them think about their life story and how they can find meaning and be the hero in their own story through making an impact on a cause that they care very much about. Qualification and cultivation helps you with prioritizing your outreach so that you're able to focus on donors who've raised their hands and told you that they're ready to talk to you about ways that you can help them find meaning in their own lives by facilitating their philanthropic goals and their giving. In doing this, we're going to optimize your time and your staff's time. We want to be able to make you focus on those people who are ready to take action to facilitate giving, but they need your help, and they're seeking your help. All the while, MarketSmart's engagement fundraising system is building a pipeline of donors for you who will become highly qualified leads over time. All of this is to say that we're here to help you raise more money more efficiently at less cost. Using this kind of system is going to make your donors very happy because they're being provided with information that's relevant to them based on what they've told us through surveys and other engagements. They'll be getting information that's timely and valuable to them instead of being spammed with messaging that's all about a nonprofit's needs and wants and desires. Offering information and stories that interest your donors, a much nicer way to treat them than soliciting them when they're not ready to make a planned or a major gift. It's going to make your board and your leadership happy when you use this kind of a system because you and your staff are optimizing your time and using it effectively to close more gifts more quickly. Of course, we all know that leadership would like to see this happen. And most of all, it's going to make you as a fundraiser happier because you are going to be able to finally focus on only those prospects who are highly qualified and ready to talk to you. You'll be helping donors find happiness by making a substantial impact on causes they care about. In short, we help you get more meetings with very highly qualified major and legacy donor prospects. So let's take a look at some of the challenges that fundraisers like you face and some of the challenges happening in the nonprofit sector. There's certainly a lack of time. More often than not, your attention is divided among several responsibilities. You may not have enough staff to help reach out to donors or prepare major and legacy gift marketing that actually works. In most cases, there's always a need for more resources to be able to help you, whether that be in-house or outsourced staff. Budgets can often be restrictive, and it's hard to know the return on investment for direct marketing so that you can actually decide the best way to continue to use your funds. Traveling to donors is time-consuming and expensive, and it can often be fruitless if a donor has not been properly qualified in their giving consideration. Qualifying prospects using traditional marketing approaches can be difficult. You want to use your time efficiently, but how do you know which donors are the best prospects? And I'm sure some of you, if not all of you, have experienced it, but it can be really tough to get an appointment with a donor. Renowned consultant Gerald Panis even said in his book, Mega Gifts, that getting an appointment is 85% of getting the gift. And it's even harder to get the appointment than it is to secure a gift. On top of the challenges that fundraisers like you face, there is another challenge that's facing the entire nonprofit sector. Our CEO, Greg Warner, has been talking about this for over 8 years now, and your organization may or may not be feeling the effects of it, but most of our clients tell us that they are. It's fundraising climate change. This is actually a term that Greg coined to describe shifting trends happening in the nonprofit sector. The first alarming data point that we'll look at is the number of donors giving to charities. We're experiencing a shrinking donor base. The number of people giving to charity is on the decline. As a matter of fact, the AFP estimated a nearly 5% drop of donors from 2017 to 2018. So while the population in America is steadily growing, there are fewer donors who are responding to solicitations from charities. Now, some people say it has to do with income inequality, but even companies in the for-profit sector are seeing increased spending. Companies like Netflix and Starbucks, Uber, they're all on the upswing. So it seems like people are spending money, they're just not spending it with charities. On top of that, your competition is increasing. You might not think of other charities as your competition, but in truth, they are. Every charity is competing for a donor's support. The number of charities in the US has gone up drastically over the last 20 years. Whereas in 2001, there were just over 720,000 charities on record. If you fast forward 15 years from there, we're looking at 1.56 million 501c3s registered in the US. So again, we've got a shrinking donor pool, and we've got a higher number of nonprofits in the US than ever before. And that means that there is an increased competition for the support from a donor base that just keeps shrinking. Now, here's where things get really interesting. Every year, generally every year, the amount of money given to charity keeps going up. Of course, with the exception of 2008 and 2009 with the economic collapse, but year over year, the amount of money given to charity keeps increasing. How can that be, though? There are fewer donors who are giving, so how could that be that more money is being given to charity year over year? Well, thanks to MarketSmart's fundraising report card, which I'll talk a little bit about in just a few seconds, but we can safely say that no longer is 80% of your revenue coming from 20% of your donors. It's more like 70% of your revenue is coming from 0.7% of your donors. That's less than 1% of all of your donors who are making up almost 3/4 of your organization's revenue. Let's take a look at some data. Donors who give $5,000 or more make up about 0.7% of an organization's database. but they make up 70% of the revenue. Comparatively, if we look at other donors, the donors who probably get most of the direct mail and telemarketing and email that you spend your budgets on, they're generally giving under $100. This group makes up 80% of an organization's database, but it only makes up 7% of all donation revenue. Now, how do we know all of this? Well, as I mentioned before, with our fundraising report card app, we've taken a look at data from over 4,000 nonprofits who have submitted records for over $40 billion in donations, and we've analyzed trends in giving using this data. Now, this is real data collected in our app. In fact, you can use this tool too for free to analyze your organization's data and see how your nonprofit measures up. You can go to fundraisingreportcard.com, and all you have to do is upload your data, again, to be able to see how you compare to other organizations similar to yours in the industry. So we've looked at this data in real time, and we can see that on average, less than 1% of a nonprofit's donors make up 70% of its revenue. So let's recap. Your competition is increasing. A fraction of your database is likely making up the majority of your revenue. And fewer people are giving to charity. There's much more data from our app that supports what the nonprofit sector is actually experiencing via fundraising climate change, but these are basically the high-level findings. Now let's go a little deeper and look at what's also happening within these donor segments that I've described. Most nonprofits are spending a ton of money on the 80% of their database who only make up 7% of the revenue. Money on direct mail and solicitations. The average donation is $25. Only about 1 in 5 of these donors retains year after year. And their average lifetime value is only $42. Most of these low-level donors then go to one of your competitors, or they stop giving altogether, as we're seeing with some of our data. Now compare that to the $5,000 and up donors. They give on average $28,000, not just 25 bucks. They retain at double the rate. And their lifetime value is almost $75,000. Let's have a look at these side by side and have a comparison to see the difference between where organizations spend most of their marketing budget and where they're spending otherwise. There's your difference in average donation amount, your difference in retention, and your difference in lifetime value. And remember, aside from poor retention and low lifetime value, fewer people are donating. According to Giving USA, giving is increasing because of larger gifts from richer donors. Smaller and mid-level donors are slowly but surely disappearing across the board and all organizations. Also, Network for Good says nonprofit organizations in the United States are now being challenged by major political, demographic, economic, and technological factors that are outside of their control. And most organizations find themselves flat-footed and unable to easily adapt. Now at MarketSmart, we agree with all of this, but we do have a slightly different take on it. Let's simplify what Brian Lauterbach at Network for Good was saying. In the past, you had a handful of reliable channels to use for fundraising. And you would send people stuff, and generally, they'd send back donations. Nowadays, there are way more channels for engaging your donors. And remember, it's not just you using these channels. Your competitors are also using these channels to get your donors' attention. On top of that, Your donors are much more educated about your organization than they may have been in the past. At any point, they can get online and search your organization, read news stories about them, or they can look up your organization using any number of charity watchdog companies to get a sense of how much they can trust you. In addition to that fragmentation, donor preferences are changing. It's no longer acceptable to be pounded with junk mail, telemarketing, and spam. Donors don't like it, and I'm sure a few of you could attest to feeling annoyed by solicitations via mail, phone, and email. Now, let's take this to the extreme. In Britain, a 92-year-old woman named Olive Cook was receiving upwards of 3,000 mailings a year. She received so many solicitations that it started to catch the attention of the media, and stories were being written about how this poor lady was being hounded by charities. Some charities that she'd never even given to. They had just bought her name from other organizations. She was very generous, but of course, she only had so much to give and really could not handle all of the solicitations. Until one day, she decided to take her own life. With that, the General Data Protection Regulation Organization came in and they did a study and a report, which resulted in laws that we in the US even have to abide by today. It's called GDPR, and I'm sure you've heard about it. And at a very high level, it's about protecting citizens' privacy and their ability to let them opt in and give permission and easily opt out of any kind of marketing, especially nonprofit marketing. So, although Brian at Network for Good cited a lot of technological, political, demographic changes that are challenging nonprofits, we think a lot of donors are just plain fed up. They're fed up with being treated like ATMs, with not knowing what their donation actually does. Fed up with not being treated like a partner in their quest to help a cause that they care about. And so they're just opting out of giving to charity, and they're using that money instead to go to places like Starbucks. They're using that money to go get coffee with a friend, to do something that provides them more value than what they'd been getting with charities that they really cared about. Now, what is it then that donors want? They want fairness. They want your respect. They want to have control over the mailings that they receive. They want to be able to grant you permission, but mostly they want you to ask for permission to be marketed to. They need to be able to opt in and opt out easily of communications. They want to self-navigate and investigate things independently without someone hounding them. They want convenience. And they want value. They want to know that they are cared about by your organization, and they would like to be treated as a partner in the quest to fulfill the mission, the common shared mission that you and that donor have. Plus, they want to be engaged in a one-to-one way about making a substantial impact only when they're ready. As Greg says, hounding a donor for attention or action before they're ready will only annoy them and burn your bridges. So if you agree that fundraising climate change is not just coming, that it's here, then that means that qualification and cultivation are becoming more essential. Figuring out who wants to opt in for cultivation and then giving them value is what donors deserve. And not only that, it's what they demand. Otherwise, if you're not doing that, you're going to be pounding them for attention, which leads to wild goose chases, which wastes time, and time is money. Rushing out to meet a donor before they've been properly qualified wastes donor dollars and frustrates staff. Now, there are going to be winners and there are going to be losers as fundraising climate change takes hold. Let's look at some other changes where there were winners and losers. I'm sure all of us can remember a time when the Encyclopedia Britannica was widely sold to households across the nation and was lining bookshelves in most households. But now it's been replaced by Wikipedia. You may still hail a taxi cab from time to time, but more than likely, you're probably calling for an Uber or a Lyft. And who can forget about our beloved Blockbuster Video? Going out on a Friday or Saturday night, driving over to the store to go pick out a video, buy it for a rented period of time, watch it, and then have to return it. No one does that anymore. No one even has to leave home to watch a movie that they'd like to see. They just order it on Netflix. There's a commonality between all three of these, and it's technology. So what we've been doing with nonprofits around the world is showing them that they can also combat change, fundraising climate change, by leveraging technology so that they win. Here's what some of them are saying. By doing this and leveraging technology, like other nonprofits that I just showed you a minute ago, you can cut costs and ride the wave to success while others are facing the consequences of fundraising climate change. By using technology, you can weather the storm. What we recommend to help you weather the storm is not to just leverage technology, but to use an entire system that we call engagement fundraising. This system makes your board and leadership happy because, again, you're going to be engaging donors in a meaningful way and only spending your time on those who are qualified to be spoken with now so that you can close more gifts more quickly. You're going to be pleased because instead of wasting time with people who are not ready to talk to you, you'll be speaking with highly qualified leads who are warm and ready to know how they can actually make an impact and find meaning in their lives through supporting your charity. And importantly, your donors are going to be happy when you use engagement fundraising because they're actually going to be receiving valuable information that's relevant and timely for them instead of being hounded by offers and solicitations that don't mean anything to them. So with engagement fundraising, what we do is help you zero in on those people who are ready to engage with you now. And for anyone who's not ready, we're going to cultivate all of those prospects effortlessly. One of the biggest problems that we had cited before is not knowing who is ready to engage with you now. Traditionally, you've been able to kind of guess at who's been ready to engage by using past giving history or looking at a donor's affinity for your organization or other organizations similar to yours that they've given to. You've used maybe wealth screening or demographic screening data. Even these old methods, though, do present some new challenges. We surveyed several nonprofits and found out that most of them felt overwhelmed by the data. There was just so much. They didn't know where to start. They didn't know how to prioritize. Several said that the data went mostly unused. Can you imagine investing several thousands of dollars in screenings that just resulted in not being used whatsoever? Many said that even with the screenings, donors were just not ready to meet or even give right now. And the chief complaint that we heard was that fundraisers needed more actionable information about each prospect. What you really need to know in order to find out the answer to this question, who's ready to engage with you now, is sort of a combination of understanding who it is, but really you need to know the people who have a particular why. Why do they care about your organization? What's their story? What are their passions and interests? Do they have any people in connection with your organization who've influenced their appreciation for your organization? Are they hot or cold leads? Are they engaging? Are they ready to meet? We use a little bit in combination with some of this traditional methods of finding data for you and identifying prospects, but supplementing it and really helping you to create sort of a 360 donor profile so that you can understand not only those people who maybe in the past have really tried to give to your organization and those people who are already in your database, but we qualify them even further by understanding exactly what they care about and why they care about your mission. And once they've identified their why and they're far enough along in the consideration process, that's when you'll know that they're ready for you, because they'll need your help in learning how they can actually facilitate their why. What we provide to you is more information about prospects, more highly qualified leads, which result in more meaningful meetings. And of course, all of this is to help you close more major gifts more efficiently. So what we provide with MarketSmart's engagement fundraising system is actionable intelligence. We do this through verbatims, which is self-reported donor data via surveys and different engagement offers for two-way communication from your donor to the nonprofit. And we also track what we call digital body language. We want to know what the donors are actually clicking on, what information holds their interests. We'll track them online on a microsite that we create, and we'll also engage them through various automated emails and different offers. All of this is going to help you with much better prospect qualification. So let's talk a little bit about our process in order for doing and completing engagement fundraising. Typically, we'll engage donors by starting with a survey. This is going to do some lead generation for you and find from your database those people who are much more qualified to be spoken with or to be cultivated. Again, for that larger group of people who do have interest in making a gift or making an impact in a substantial way, but they're not ready to speak to you and they've told you so, we're going to cultivate them. We're going to do this through automated email engagements and various offers, again, for two-way communication with the donor and the organization. And all of this is going to nurture relationships and drive engagement so that we can monitor that. In doing all of this, we're giving your donor one of the points that I mentioned earlier that they want: convenience and self-navigation. They're able to educate on their own so that we can help them build their interest and desire and move them along in the consideration continuum so that they are moving towards action. And all the while, you're going to be able to see all of this on the back end so that you can prioritize your outreach, your personal outreach, to donors who are ready to speak to you now because they're engaging recently, and you can see that they're engaging with information that indicates that they are ready to be talked to. So what does it look like for a supporter? Let's take our donor, Anika. Anika might be invited to complete a survey. As I mentioned before, we usually start with a donor survey. I'll click into this just to give you an idea of what that looks like. Now, we'll work with your teams and especially your marketing, communications, and branding departments to come up with an email that matches your brand so it looks familiar to your donors. You can see we have several areas for a call to action to be able to take a survey. It's very short and to the point, letting a donor know that they've been selected to participate in a brief survey. And it's signed by a representative of the organization. Anika then, let's say, goes to take the survey. She'll be directed to a site where we're going to ask questions that help us understand a little bit more about her, but also get her thinking about her own life story and her involvement with your organization. We'll ask how she engages with the organization. Again, this is going to help you understand more about your donor, and it's going to help that donor think about their own personal connections with you. We'll want to know what's important to your donor about your organization so that then we can craft highly relevant emails and offers for that donor that are going to interest them because they've told us what their interests are. We'll find out if they have anyone who has been influential in their appreciation of your organization. And we'll give them the opportunity to let us know who that is. This is, again, going to be very useful for you as a fundraiser when you're reaching out to highly qualified leads to hear more about their story. We'll ask them to think a little bit more about future generations and whether or not they think it's very important or not that your organization is around to be able to benefit those generations. And we'll ask about ways to make sure that the organization is still around and ways to make sure that donors can have the opportunity to support and help others. Some of these will be in major gift capacity, donor advised funds, giving appreciated assets, IRA rollovers. We'll work with your organization to determine which gifts make sense for this question, and also if there are other specific initiatives that you have in mind. We've crafted this question about legacy giving in such a way that people think about the importance of their own legacy and what can be done and how their story can live on after their lifetime, as opposed to asking questions about a bequest and wondering if someone's going to include an organization in their will. Anyone who does show interest is also going to have the opportunity to request additional information, which is helpful and optimized on the back end here because it's going to generate a PDF brochure with information to give that donor immediately. Again, we're thinking of convenience and staff optimization here. No longer will you have to make sure that you reach out to get something to a donor or use in-house fulfillment to make sure that they receive that information. But of course, you're going to know on the back end if a donor did ask for information and if they did download that brochure. We'll find out how your organization ranks in comparison to other charities that the donor might support. And of course, we want this to be donor-centric and to be a good experience, an engagement experience for your donor. So we want to find out more about their own story and if they have comments that they want to share with you. This is going to be extremely helpful, again, in your outreach to highly qualified leads, because you'll be able to address these donors with information that's relevant to them and ask them more questions about some of the comments that they've left you. And it's going to help carry your discussion along so that they trust in you and you build that trust because you know exactly what's important to this donor since they've given you that information. We're going to help you further characterize the donors by asking about some certain demographics like age, marital status, family status, education, and very importantly, professional life. And another major benefit to this survey to not only you, but to the donor, is that we'll have this information pre-filled as long as you provide it to us. And your donor has the opportunity to then update their information as they see fit. Remember, donors want to be able to give you permission to be able to reach out to them, and they want things to be convenient for them, and they want it only the way that they prefer. They only want to be communicated with in the ways that they prefer. So your donors will have the ability to update that information, and on the back end, you'll be able to download this and share it with your data team so that you can update your database accordingly. As I just mentioned, donors want to be able to opt in and opt out when they prefer. We do give donors the opportunity to opt in for occasional emails that will have stories, valuable information, and supporter information that's relevant to them based on the answers from this survey. So after our donor submits a survey, she's going to receive a personalized thank you page. This page is going to give that person the opportunity to explore a little bit more. They could donate now, or they could certainly find other ways to connect with your organization. Now let's say that our prospect, our donor here, Anika, did opt in to receive email communication. These emails are meant to look one-to-one and personalized to your donor based on the responses they'd given us in their survey and other engagements online. They're plain text emails that come directly from a representative at the organization. And again, this is really meant to almost replicate you as a fundraiser or a gift officer on an automated level so that you're not sitting and personally typing out each of these emails. We'll have this running on automated cultivation for people who need to receive these light touches, but that truthfully, you should not be spending all of your time on. Now, I will give you a little anecdote here about a fundraiser who was paying attention to a specific donor who had been engaging with these cultivation emails he could see on the back end in his dashboard. And I'll show you the dashboard in just a little bit. That a particular donor had been engaging with the emails, opening, clicking them, and then clicking to a personalized microsite that we had created for the organization. So this gift officer happened to notice this donor, especially because in that person's survey, they did mention that they had interest in legacy giving. And the fundraiser reached out about a day or so after he noticed this donor engaging in his dashboard. And he gave that person a call. And the donor was very happy to take that person's call because, again, he had been receiving emails from this fundraiser. And there was a relationship that was being built there on an automated level. Of course, the donor doesn't realize this, but you as a fundraiser know that you're optimizing your time in this way. So this fundraiser reaches out to the donor. They have a very nice conversation where the fundraiser realized this person was not quite ready to sit down and talk about legacy giving, but he was able to have a great conversation with him and learn more about that person's interests so that he could document that and keep it on file. All the while, the donor also mentioned that he had forgotten to make a contribution to the organization and he'd been meaning to. Now, of course, the fundraiser didn't think too much of that. They parted ways and nothing else really came of it. A few weeks later, though, this same donor opened a new email from the fundraiser and was clicking onto the website again and clicking different pages about ways to make a legacy gift. So the fundraiser picked up the phone and reached the donor, who again was very happy to have a conversation with the fundraiser because he had just received an email the other day from him. And they were speaking, and not only did it net out in a visit to actually talk about legacy giving, because this donor finally said, you know what, I was looking at a few things on your website and I have some questions I'd like to talk to you. It also netted out in that donor saying, I'm so sorry, but I forgot to do what I said I was going to do last time and make a contribution to the organization. Now, again, the fundraiser wasn't going to hold his breath, and he was very pleased anyway because he had actually gotten a visit scheduled with this donor. But they hung up the phone, and about an hour and a half later, a member of the fundraiser staff came and gave him a notice that they had just received a $500,000 wire transfer from that donor. Now, imagine if this fundraiser wasn't using engagement fundraising and didn't see this behavior and didn't even know to reach out to this donor. That's the importance and the power of these relevant, timely, personalized outreach touch points like email and engagement efforts like survey. Now, not everyone is going to be ready to speak to you and move to that level of giving like this donor in this story. But for those who aren't, we are still giving them timely and personalized outreach to help them self-educate and build trust with your organization and with you as the fundraiser. All of this is going to help you set meetings and close gifts so that then you can steward these donors. Now that we know what it looks like for a supporter, what does it look like for you as a fundraiser when you partner with MarketSmart? First, we're going to work with you to find out a little bit more about your goals and your objectives. You're going to have a dedicated team of what we call solutionists. These are going to be the people to help you implement the projects that we work on together and to help you with your strategy for marketing. We're going to then write and design products based on the needs that we know you as an organization and you as a fundraiser have. We're going to work with you to create a strategy for following up and prioritizing your top leads. And when we get ready to launch the system, which includes a survey, a microsite, and cultivation emails, we're going to do a dashboard training. We're going to show you how to use the different functions and tools in your dashboard so that you can continue to prioritize your outreach. And of course, We're going to work with you to learn more about your team. You might just be a one-person shop using the data in the dashboard, or maybe you have several fellow team members who are going to be using that data. We'll work with you to craft the best process for your team to be able to use this information as effectively as possible. Now, I've been mentioning that we're going to help you prioritize leads in your dashboard. I'll show you a little bit of what that means. This is an organization who's worked with us for a few years now, University of the Pacific, and I've had their dashboard pulled up as an example here. And as you can see, we're going to show you information such as how many people have engaged recently, how many people have decided through various engagement efforts and surveys that they've included the organization in their will, or that they have interest in legacy giving. Where are your donors? Where are they responding from? This is all information that you're going to see once you log into your dashboard, but what's really going to help you is when you look at all of the supporters who have been engaging with the different efforts that we have been helping you with. Now, for instance, you can see that we have several people in this dashboard where we can take a look at their profiles and learn a little bit more about how they've responded to these different offers. If I click this donor here, I can see right off the bat that he's actually included University of the Pacific in his will. He took a 2018 survey and let us know that. But what's really interesting and what I'd like to see is, where did his journey start? Now, this donor actually engaged with us the first time in 2016 in a planned giving survey that the University of the Pacific did. He let us know all kinds of information about himself, how he engaged, what was important to him. And most interestingly, at that point in time, he said that he was not really interested now in planned giving, but that in the future he might possibly be interested. He also told us that he would be interested and likely to make a gift through a donor-advised fund or a family trust or foundation. Now, to help you as a fundraiser further qualify these donors, if a donor responds positively in this way, we actually drop down a question in the survey to then ask whether or not they have a donor-advised fund or family foundation account. Now, he did not, but it doesn't diminish the fact that he is interested in giving in that way and may need more information. As I mentioned before, we're going to find out important demographic information to help you characterize this donor and get that 360-degree profile on them. This person said at that point he was between 80 and 89. He is married and he does have 2 children, so we're going to consider that in his score that we create, and especially in terms of legacy giving and capacity. Since he does have heirs, he might have people who are dependent on him at this point. And we can also see that in 2017, he took another survey. So this donor is leaning in a lot. He told us that he had attended Pacific. Again, let us know how he's been engaging and that he reviews some of the different publications that they have. He said that he might consider a planned gift in the future. So his consideration hadn't really changed. But this time he did share with us that it was a faculty member who really inspired his appreciation for the college. And it was actually a significant and a specific professor who he had cited there. So that's great information for a gift officer to be able to engage this donor with. I can also see that at this point, he opted in to receive email communications from us. So let's take a look at some of the digital body language that occurred between 2017 and 2018. I can see that here in his digital body language tab. And actually, I can see that he has engaged with various emails, opening them and even clicking into some. I can see that at one point in 2018, he was interested in an engagement piece, Supporters Like You, that we had put out through an email. We can see where he opened and clicked the link and then went back to Pacific's microsite to read a little bit more about supporters like him. So at that point in 2017, he had said that he did have some interest in legacy giving, And now he had been receiving light touches from the fundraiser personally with stories and engagement opportunities. In April of 2018, just about 6 months later, he was asked for his opinion again in another survey. And so he provided it. And interestingly enough, this person moved up in their consideration from the last survey that they took and said that they've now included University of the Pacific in his will. We can see a little bit of donor journeys when we click on the donor journey tab here. And again, this is sort of how this person's journey had went, where he didn't really change much in consideration, but interestingly, he started receiving cultivation, and within a short period of time, a relatively short period of time, given that it is quite a considered gift, he moved up in consideration and had then included the organization in his will. When you partner with MarketSmart, this dashboard is ongoing and you'll have all of this information for all of your leads. And we do make it very easy for you to be able to take this information and export it so that you can then upload it into your CRM. Or we can work with you and your IT and technological data teams to be able to use our open API to be able to push data into your CRM. So now that we've talked a little bit about prioritizing leads and you understand what it looks like to be a fundraiser partnering with MarketSmart, you know that what we'll do is help you get to the point where you get to do what you do best. And that is meet with your donors and help facilitate their wishes and their desires and their philanthropic goals. Thank you so much for coming and attending today's webinar about being the fundraiser that you always wanted to be. Again, my name is Jen Willette. I'm a donor engagement strategist here, and we'll be sending an email to you if you'd like a more personalized one-to-one demonstration, or you're welcome to visit us at imarketsmart.com/demo and request a demonstration. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.